Let's talk about compliance management. Before we proceed, just checking in um, to ask, how is it going with the course? Are you finding it interesting? Any challenges? Any areas that you don't understand? Um, we are always available on the Psychia Learners community. Always feel free to go in there, any of the channels, ask questions, or even drop feedback. It might be positive feedback, things you like, or things you don't like, or things that you want to see us change. Yeah, this is just a mini check-in to see how it's going. And yeah, when you see this, reply in the Psychia Learners community, and we'll see how we can help you better. So let's dive into compliance management. Um, as always, you already know this. Cyber threats are growing, and governments, industries, alliances, organizations around the world are um, committed to establishing strict cybersecurity regulations and standards. And compliance management is very important for organizations because you need to meet these requirements to adhere to laws and industry standards. This affects businesses because, well, you already understand the law part. It could have legal consequences, but also the industry part. When something is an industry standard, you don't want to be left out. You want to make sure that you are at the forefront. You want to make sure that your customers have confidence um, that their data is secure with you. So it's very important um, to do compliance. Compliance does not equal security, but if done properly, it can improve your security posture while offering additional value to the business. Now, what are regulatory requirements and standards? Well, information security is guided by regulations and standards that aim to safeguard data, privacy, and security. And there are laws that have been enacted worldwide to protect personal information, to prevent data breaches, and to mitigate cyber risks. Very important one is the GDPR. You've probably heard about it. For its relevance to the EU, but it's also relevant to global organizations that don't originate in the EU. Because guess what? If you want to do business in the EU, if you have EU customers, you have to adhere. Um, since UK left the EU, they also introduced the Data Protection Act, which is very similar to the GDPR. There's also HIPAA in the US and the Personal Data Protection Bill in India that all aim to enhance cybersecurity and uphold data privacy rights. Now, beyond legal regulations and laws, we also have specific standards for industries. Different industries have developed cybersecurity standards to tackle specific risks and issues. For example, we have the PCI DSS or Payment Card Industry Data Security Standards that pretty much every financial technology organization or anybody processing card details has to adhere to. We also have the ISO 27001, which is not very specific to an industry, but it's something that all industries can apply and allows us to have a very good ISMS framework if done properly. And these industry standards serve as like practical blueprints that organizations can use to align security measures with their own requirements. And the compliance management plays a very important role when it comes to information security because it's the foundation that we can use to establish secure and resilient organization in cybersecurity. We have very important areas like compliance mapping, risk assessment, policy development, implementation of controls, training and awareness, and continuous monitoring. Compliance mapping involves identifying relevant regulation and standards. So you don't just go and say, okay, we want to do ISO 27001 or we want to do cyber essentials. There has to be a reason. So you have to actually like understand the business contexts, understand the business requirements, and try to find out, okay, which regulations apply to us, which industry standards, would be most appropriate for us as a business. And with risk assessment, it helps us understand um, vulnerabilities and threats affecting compliance. Um, with policy development, it kind of aligns our policies with regulatory requirements. For implementation of controls, that helps us safeguard data, and that can be used to prove compliance with specific standards. And training and awareness is important because our relevant stakeholders need to be well educated about compliance obligations. Continuous monitoring is also important because we need to regularly measure our security controls and do regular audits so that we know that we are staying compliant. To conclude, um, proactive compliance management helps us and our businesses meet legal and industry requirements, also helps us strengthen our security posture, build customer trust, and mitigate cybersecurity risks. And meeting these requirements and standards is very important for a secure and resilient future in an evolving digital world. But remember, compliance does not equal security. You don't do compliance for the sake of compliance. You find a way to make that compliance that you're trying to implement, or the regulations and standards, make sure that at the end of the day you're improving security and you're not just checking boxes. So it needs to be something that's very relevant to your business. It needs to be something that adds value to the business. Thank you, and we'll meet in the next lesson.